A single father with calloused hands and a 6-year-old daughter just locked his garage door with 3 armed men closing in on a bleeding heiress he's never met before. In 60 seconds, Ryan Mercer will destroy everything he built to stay invisible. By morning, the billionaire watching his daughter color at a kitchen table will realize the quiet mechanic who saved her life commands more power than anyone she's ever known. This is the story of a man who disappeared to protect his child, and the woman who made him stop running. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And stay until the end because everything you think you know is wrong. The wrench slipped. Ryan Mercer cursed under his breath as engine oil dripped down his forearm, black and thick in the fluorescent light hanging crooked above the Kawasaki he'd been working on for 3 days. The bike belonged to a college kid who paid in cash and never asked questions, which made him Ryan's favorite kind of customer. No small talk. No curiosity about why a guy who could rebuild a transmission blindfolded was working out of a garage barely bigger than a storage unit in a neighborhood where gunshots were background noise.
Daddy, I'm hungry.
Emma's voice drifted down from the apartment upstairs, small and patient in that way that always made Ryan's chest hurt. She was 6. She shouldn't have to be patient. 10 minutes, baby, he called back, wiping his hands on a rag that had been white sometime in a previous decade. I'm almost done. That was a lie. He wasn't almost done. The carburetor was fighting him, and his right shoulder ached from an old injury that never quite healed right. And the rent was due in 4 days, and he had exactly $347 in the account. He kept under a name that wasn't his. Ryan straightened, pressing his knuckles into his lower back. Through the grimy window facing the street, Brooklyn looked like it always did at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening in October. Tired, gray, indifferent. A few people hurried past with their heads down. A bus wheezed by, belching exhaust. Somewhere close, a dog barked with the kind of desperation that said it had been barking for hours and nobody cared. This was fine. This was exactly what he wanted. Nobody noticed mechanics. Nobody remembered faces in neighborhoods like this one, where everyone was too busy surviving to pay attention to the guy fixing motorcycles in a garage with a hand-painted sign that said Mercer Repair in letters that were already peeling. He'd been invisible for 3 years. He planned to stay invisible until Emma graduated high school, maybe college, if he could stretch it that far. Then maybe he could breathe. Ryan picked up the wrench again, angling himself under the bike's frame. His shoulders barely fit in the space. Everything about this place was too small, too cramped, too much like a cage he'd locked himself inside. But cages kept things out as much as they kept things in, and that was the point. The bell above the garage door chimed. Ryan didn't move. We're closed. Please. The voice was female, young, shaking badly enough that the single word came out in pieces. Ryan closed his eyes. Slowly, he slid out from under the Kawasaki and looked toward the door. The woman standing just inside the garage was maybe mid-20s, dressed in clothes that cost more than Ryan's truck. A cream-colored coat with actual buttons, tailored pants, leather boots that had never seen a subway platform. Her dark hair hung loose around a face that belonged in a magazine, except for the blood. It streaked down from her hairline, vivid against pale skin, dripping onto the expensive coat. I said we're closed, Ryan repeated, keeping his voice flat. I know. She took a step forward, stumbled, caught herself against a workbench. I'm sorry, I need help. Hospital's 6 blocks that way. Ryan pointed west without moving from his position beside the motorcycle. I can't. She looked back at the door, breathing too fast. They're coming. The men they're looking for me. Ryan's jaw tightened. This was exactly the kind of problem he'd spent 3 years avoiding. Exactly the kind of situation that got people killed. Not my business, he said. Please. Her eyes found his, and there was something in them that Ryan recognized because he'd seen it in his own mirror often enough. Terror. The kind that came from understanding, with absolute clarity, that you were about to die. I'll pay you. Whatever you want, just... The sound of car doors slamming cut her off. Ryan moved before he could stop himself, crossing the garage in 3 strides and looking through the window. 2 SUVs, black, anonymous, parked at angles that blocked the street. 4 men getting out, moving with the kind of coordination that said military training or something close to it. One of them had a gun. Not hidden. Not tucked away, just hanging loose at his side like it was part of the uniform. How many people know you came here? Ryan asked quietly. No one. I was running and I saw the light and... Get upstairs. She blinked. What? There's a door behind that shelf. Ryan pointed without looking away from the window. The men were spreading out, two heading toward the front, two circling around back. Professional, efficient, bad. Stairs go up to my apartment. Lock yourself in the bathroom. Do not come out until I tell you to. But move. She moved. Ryan waited until he heard her footsteps on the stairs, then walked to the garage door and locked it. The deadbolt was industrial, the kind used on warehouses, because Ryan had installed it himself, and he didn't do anything halfway. He flipped off the overhead light, leaving just the work lamp still glowing beside the Kawasaki. Then he pulled his phone from his pocket and texted Emma. Stay in your room, headphones on, do not come out. She knew what that meant. They'd practiced. The first knock came 5 seconds later. We're looking for someone, a voice called through the door. Polite, almost friendly. Young woman, dark hair, seen anyone like that? Ryan walked to the door but didn't open it. Shop's closed. This won't take long. Come back tomorrow. Silence. Ryan counted to 5. Then the man outside said, Sir, I'm going to need you to open this door. No. Excuse me? I said no. Ryan kept his voice level, bored even. I'm trying to finish a job. You're interrupting. Come back tomorrow with a warrant or an appointment. More silence. Ryan used it to move to the workbench, pulling open the bottom drawer. Inside, wrapped in an oil-stained towel, was the Glock 19 he hadn't touched in 3 years. It felt heavier than he remembered. Or maybe he'd just forgotten what it felt like to hold something designed specifically to end lives. The crash came without warning, the garage door shuddering as something heavy slammed into it from outside. Not enough to break it, but enough to make the walls shake. Last chance, the voice called. Ryan checked the Glock's magazine. 15 rounds. He'd hoped to die of old age before he had to count bullets again. Emma's face flickered through his mind. She was upstairs right now, sitting on her bed with her headphones on, probably listening to that kid's podcast she liked about dinosaurs. She had homework due tomorrow. A field trip on Friday. A life that depended entirely on Ryan keeping her safe. He'd walked away from everything to make that possible. And now someone was trying to kick his door in. Ryan took a slow breath, then opened the garage door. 4 men stood outside. The one in front was maybe 40, built like he'd played football once and never quite stopped training. The gun was in his hand now, pointed down but ready. Evening, Ryan said pleasantly. Can I help you? The man's eyes swept the garage behind Ryan, cataloging, calculating. We're looking for a woman. About 5'7", dark hair, wearing a cream coat. She was seen entering this area approximately 8 minutes ago. Haven't seen her. Mind if we look around? Yes. The man's expression didn't change. Sir, this doesn't have to be difficult. You're right, Ryan agreed. You can leave. That's pretty easy. One of the other men shifted, hand moving toward his waistband. Ryan tracked the movement without appearing to, his own hand still loose at his side. The Glock was tucked into the back of his jeans, hidden by his shirt. We have reason to believe she's in immediate danger, the first man continued. We're here to ensure her safety. Funny, Ryan said. You look more like the danger. That landed. The man's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Step aside. No. I'm not asking. Neither am I. The man raised his gun. Ryan moved. It happened faster than conscious thought. Muscle memory from another life. From training that had been beaten into him until it was instinct. He stepped inside the gun's line, his left hand snapping up to trap the man's wrist, while his right drove forward, palm strike to the solar plexus. The man's breath exploded out. Ryan twisted, using the momentum to yank him forward and down, driving his knee up into the man's face. The gun clattered to the pavement. The other 3 were reaching for their weapons when Ryan swept up the fallen gun and fired twice. Not at them. At the pavement near their feet. The shots cracked through the quiet street like thunder, sparks jumping where the bullets struck concrete. All 3 men froze. Leave, Ryan said quietly. Nobody moved. Ryan adjusted his aim, pointing the gun at the closest man's center mass. His hand was steady. His voice was steadier. I'm not going to say it again. For a long moment, the only sound was the man on the ground groaning and trying to breathe. Then one of the standing men, younger than the others, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, said, "You just made a mistake." "Probably," Ryan agreed, "but you're still leaving." They left. They dragged their friend with them, leaving a smear of blood on the pavement. The SUVs pulled away 30 seconds later, engines growling, taillights disappearing around the corner. Ryan stood in the doorway until the street was quiet again. Then he turned off the safety, cleared the gun, and set it on the workbench. His hands were shaking. Not fear, just adrenaline burning off, the aftermath of violence he'd hoped to never touch again. "Emma," he called up the stairs. "You okay?" "Yes, Daddy." Her voice was small but controlled. Good girl. She'd learned too young not to panic. "Can I come out now?" "Yeah, baby. It's safe." He heard her door open, heard her footsteps crossing the apartment overhead, then lighter footsteps behind her, and Ryan remembered the woman. She appeared at the top of the stairs, still bleeding, still terrified, but standing upright now. Her eyes found Ryan's, and something in her expression shifted. Not relief, recognition. "You're not a mechanic," she said quietly. Ryan picked up his wrench. "Yeah, I am. Mechanics don't move like that. Some of us have hobbies." Emma came down the stairs, slipping past the woman and running to Ryan. He caught her, lifting her up with one arm, even though she was getting too big for that. She wrapped her arms around his neck and held on tight. "Who's that?" Emma whispered. "Someone who needed help," Ryan said. "Is she staying for dinner?" Ryan looked at the woman. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read, part fear, part curiosity, part something else. Like she was trying to solve a puzzle and not liking the answer she was getting. "No," Ryan said firmly. "She's leaving." "I can't." The woman took a step down the stairs, wincing. "Those men, they'll be watching the streets. They have people everywhere." "Not my problem." "They're trying to kill me." "Still not my problem." "They murdered my father." Ryan set Emma down gently. "Go back upstairs. Heat up the leftover pasta from yesterday." "But now, Emma." She went, casting one last curious look at the stranger before disappearing back up the stairs. Ryan waited until he heard the apartment door close, then turned to the woman. "You need to go." "Where?" She spread her hands. I don't have anywhere safe. Everyone I trusted is either dead or trying to kill me. I have no one." "There are shelters, police stations. The police can't help me." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The people after me have judges, politicians, entire departments in their pocket. If I walk into a police station, I'll be dead before morning." "Then hire security." "I tried. They're the ones who just tried to break down your door." That stopped Ryan cold. "What?" "The men outside. They were supposed to be protecting me. My head of security arranged them after someone tried to take me 3 days ago. I thought—" She swallowed hard. "I thought I could trust them. I was wrong." Ryan studied her, really looked at her for the first time, past the blood and the expensive clothes and the terror. She was young, probably barely out of college, but there was something in her eyes that wasn't young at all. Something exhausted and desperate and hanging on by its fingernails. He knew that look. He'd worn it himself once. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amelia." She hesitated. "Amelia Vaughn." The name meant nothing to Ryan. Should it? He'd been disconnected from that world for 3 years, deliberately ignorant of anything that didn't directly affect keeping Emma safe and fed. "And what did you do," he asked slowly, "to make people want you dead?" "I inherited a company," Amelia said. "My father's company, Vaughn Global. We're in shipping, logistics, international trade. After he died 6 months ago, I took over as CEO. And about 3 weeks ago, I started noticing irregularities. Money moving through accounts that shouldn't exist. Shipments that didn't match any client contracts. When I started asking questions," she touched her forehead, wincing. "People stopped answering." Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You should have left it alone." "It's my company." "It's just a company. Companies can be replaced. You can't." Easy for you to say. Amelia's voice went sharp. You're not the one watching everything your father built get gutted by criminals. You're not the one responsible for 3,000 employees who'll lose their jobs if this company collapses. You're right, Ryan said flatly. I'm just the guy trying to keep his kids safe in a city that wants to eat us both, and you just brought armed men to my door. Amelia flinched. For a moment she looked like she might cry. Then she straightened, pulling herself together with visible effort. You're right. I'm sorry. I'll go. She started past him toward the door. Ryan caught her arm. Not hard, just enough to stop her. Wait, he heard himself say, and immediately regretted it. Amelia looked at him. One night, Ryan said. You stay tonight. Tomorrow morning, I help you figure out somewhere safe to go. After that, you're on your own. Deal? Relief flooded her face. Thank you. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Ryan released her arm and pointed up the stairs. Bathroom's first door on the left. Clean yourself up. There's a first aid kit under the sink. What about those men? What if they come back? They won't. How do you know? Ryan looked at her. Really looked at her, letting her see something he usually kept buried deep. Something cold and final. Because they're smart enough to regroup before trying again, and by tomorrow morning, you'll be gone. He turned away before she could respond, walking to the workbench and picking up his tools. The Kawasaki wasn't going to fix itself. Behind him, he heard Amelia climb the stairs slowly. Ryan worked in silence for 20 minutes, forcing his hands to stay steady, forcing his mind to focus on carburetors and fuel lines instead of the disaster he'd just invited into his home. This was temporary. She'd be gone by morning. Everything would go back to normal. Except it wouldn't. Those men had seen his face. They knew he'd intervened. And people like that, people who moved with military precision and carried guns like they were fashion accessories, didn't forget. Ryan tightened a bolt with more force than necessary. 3 years. He'd managed 3 quiet years, and now it was over. When he finally went upstairs 40 minutes later, Amelia was sitting at his kitchen table with Emma, helping her with 3rd-grade math homework. She'd cleaned the blood off her face, revealing a cut above her eyebrow that would need stitches but probably wouldn't scar. She'd also changed out of the cream coat into an old sweatshirt Ryan didn't recognize. Must have been in the back of his closet from before. She looked absurdly out of place in his tiny kitchen, with its chipped laminate counters and the ceiling stained from the leak he'd fixed last winter. Emma looked up when Ryan entered. Amelia's really good at fractions. Great, Ryan said. You should be in bed. It's only 8:30. It's a school night. Emma sighed dramatically, but closed her math book. Can Amelia read me a story? No. Please? Emma. It's okay, Amelia said softly. I don't mind. Ryan looked at her. She met his gaze steadily, something defiant in her expression now, like she was daring him to refuse. Fine, he said. 1 story, then bed. Emma cheered and dragged Amelia toward the bedroom, leaving Ryan alone in the kitchen. He stood there for a moment, listening to their voices through the thin walls. Emma's bright chatter. Amelia's quieter responses. They were reading something about dragons. Ryan pulled out his phone and opened a browser he'd coded himself. Encrypted, anonymous, untraceable. He typed in Vaughn Global. The results filled the screen. Luxury shipping. International logistics. Headquartered in Manhattan with operations in 40 countries. Annual revenue in the billions. And yes, there was Amelia Vaughn, recently appointed CEO, following the death of her father, Marcus Vaughn, who died in February of what was officially called a heart attack. Ryan clicked deeper. Marcus Vaughn had been 58. No history of heart problems, no warning signs, just found dead in his office one morning by his assistant. Convenient. Ryan kept reading. Vaughn Global was hemorrhaging money. Stock price down 40% in 6 months. Major investors pulling out. Rumors of SEC investigations, though nothing formal yet. And there, buried in a financial blog post from 3 weeks ago, a line about unusual shipping patterns and questions about cargo manifest accuracy. Someone was using Vaughn Global to move things that weren't supposed to move, and Amelia had noticed. Ryan closed the browser and sat down at the kitchen table, pressing his palms against his eyes. This was so much worse than he'd thought. 20 minutes later, Amelia emerged from Emma's room, closing the door softly behind her. She's asleep, she said. Ryan nodded. Amelia sat down across from him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Amelia said, "Who are you?" "A mechanic." "Please don't lie to me. Not after—" She gestured vaguely at the garage below. "Not after that." Ryan was quiet. "You moved like you'd done it 1,000 times," Amelia continued. "4 armed men, and you didn't hesitate. Didn't even look scared. You just handled it like it was routine." "Adrenaline," Ryan said. "Bullshit." He looked at her sharply. Amelia didn't flinch. "I watched my father build a global company from nothing. I've sat across from billionaires, arms dealers, politicians who smile while they lie to your face. I know what dangerous people look like. And you," she leaned forward, "you're not just dangerous, you're something else." "You should get some sleep," Ryan said. "Tell me who you are." "No." "Why not?" "Because," Ryan said quietly, "the less you know about me, the safer you'll be." Amelia laughed. It was a bitter sound. "I'm being hunted by people who killed my father and are trying to destroy my company. I don't think I can get much less safe." "You'd be surprised." "Try me." Ryan stood up, walking to the window and looking out at the street below. Still quiet. No SUVs, no men with guns. But they'd be out there somewhere, watching, waiting. They always were. "My name is Ryan Mercer," he said finally. "That part's true. Emma is my daughter. I do fix motorcycles. Everything else—" He turned to face her. "Everything else is done. Finished. I don't do that work anymore." "What work?" "The kind that gets people killed." Amelia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "But you were good at it?" It wasn't a question. Ryan didn't answer. "I need help," Amelia said. "Real help. Not lawyers or security guards or private investigators who'll just get paid off or killed. I need someone who knows how to fight the kind of people who—" Her voice cracked. "Who murder fathers and burn companies and don't even blink. That's not me anymore." "Yes, it is. I saw it." "You saw reflex, training. That doesn't mean—" "I'll pay you," Amelia interrupted. "Whatever you want, name your price." "I don't want your money." "Then what do you want?" Ryan looked at her. "I want you to leave tomorrow morning and never come back. I want to go back to being invisible. I want my daughter to have a normal life." "And what if I said I could give you that?" Amelia leaned forward. "What if helping me was the only way to make sure those men never come back here? Because they will, you know? They saw your face. They know you protected me. You think they're just going to forget that?" Ryan's jaw tightened. She was right. He knew she was right. "I'm not asking you to save the world," Amelia said quietly. "I'm asking you to help me save 3,000 people who are about to lose everything because criminals hijacked my company. I'm asking you to help me find the people who murdered my father. And yes, I'm asking you to help keep me alive long enough to do it. That's all." "That's not all," Ryan said. "That's everything." "Then say yes." "No." Amelia stood up. For a moment she just looked at him, her expression somewhere between frustration and desperation. Then she said, "Where should I sleep?" "Couch." "Thank you." She started toward the living room, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For bringing this to your door, for putting Emma at risk. I wouldn't have come here if I'd had any other choice." Ryan didn't respond. Amelia left him standing in the kitchen. He stayed there for a long time, watching the street through the window, waiting for SUVs that didn't come. Eventually, he walked to Emma's room and opened the door quietly. She was asleep, curled up with the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 2. Her math homework was still spread across her desk. Her shoes were kicked off beside the bed, exactly where he'd told her 100 times not to leave them. She looked so small, so vulnerable. Ryan had lost too much already. His wife, his career, his name, every friend he'd ever had. He'd given up everything to keep this one small person safe, and he'd do it again without hesitation. But looking at Emma now, peaceful and trusting and completely unaware of the violence that had come to their door tonight, Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. Those men would be back, and next time they'd be ready for him. He could run, take Emma and disappear again, start over somewhere new. It had worked before. It could work again. Except they'd seen his face now. They knew he existed. And people who knew how to find a bleeding heiress in Brooklyn Could definitely find a mechanic with a 6-year-old daughter. Ryan closed Emma's door softly and walked to his own room. He didn't undress, just lay on top of the covers, staring at the ceiling, listening to the building settle around him. In the living room, Amelia Vaughn was probably doing the same thing, lying on his too-short couch, wondering if she'd survive long enough to see tomorrow. She wouldn't, not without help. Ryan closed his eyes. He'd been a different person once, someone powerful enough to bring down international syndicates, someone feared by people who thought they were untouchable, someone who'd believed making the world a better place was worth any cost. And then the world had taken everything from him, and he'd learned the real cost. But maybe Amelia was right. Maybe helping her was the only way to keep Emma safe. Or maybe he was just tired of running. Outside, Brooklyn breathed in the darkness. Cars passed. Someone shouted in the distance. A siren wailed blocks away. Ryan lay perfectly still and let himself remember what it felt like to be dangerous. By morning, he'd made his decision.
You said, kiểm tra, nếu chưa đủ số từ, hãy viết bổ sung cho đủ 6.500 đến 7.000 từ như yêu cầu cho tôi. Kiểm tra nếu chưa đủ số từ, hãy viết bổ sung cho đủ 6.500 đến 7.000 từ như yêu cầu cho tôi. Ngày 7 tháng 5, Claude responded, I need to check the word count of part 1 that I just wrote. I need to check the word count of part 1 that I just wrote. Let me count. The current part 1 has approximately 4,200 words, which is significantly short of the required 6,500 to 7,000 words. I need to write an additional 2,300 to 2,800 words to meet the requirement. I'll continue part 1 with more content, expanding the story with additional dialogue, character development, and tension. Wuchak. Continuation of part 1. The morning came gray and cold, the kind of October dawn that made Brooklyn look even more exhausted than usual. Ryan had been awake for hours, sitting in the kitchen with coffee that had gone cold in his cup, thinking through scenarios he'd hoped to never consider again. Amelia emerged from the living room just after 6, looking like she'd slept about as well as he had. Her hair was tangled, the cut above her eyebrow had crusted over, and she was still wearing his old sweatshirt. Without makeup, without the polished veneer she'd probably worn every day of her corporate life, she looked younger, more real. Coffee? Ryan asked. Please. He poured her a cup. She took it with both hands, wrapping her fingers around the warmth. Emma's not up yet, Ryan said. She usually sleeps until 7 on school days. Fights me every morning about it. Amelia smiled faintly. She's sweet. You've done a good job with her. I'm doing the best I can. That's all any parent can do. Amelia sipped the coffee, made a face. This is terrible. Yeah, but it's hot. That's the point. They sat in silence for a moment. Through the window, the street was starting to wake up. Early commuters heading toward the subway, a delivery truck rumbling past, the bodega across the street flickering its lights on. I thought about what you said last night, Amelia said quietly. About leaving. About going somewhere safe. Ryan waited. There's nowhere safe, she continued. Not for me. Not anymore. The people doing this, they're everywhere. They own people. Real estate, politicians, judges. My own head of security tried to have me killed. The board members I thought I could trust have been lying to my face for months. I don't even know who's on their payroll and who isn't. So what's your plan? Ryan asked. Just keep running until they catch you? I don't have a plan. That's why I need you. I already told you, Eski. I know what you told me. Amelia set down her coffee cup with enough force to make it clatter against the table. You told me you're just a mechanic. You told me you're done with whatever you used to do. You told me to leave and never come back. But here's what I know. Those men last night were professionals. Military contractors, probably. The kind who get paid 6 figures to make problems disappear. And you took them apart like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. It looked like nothing. It looked like you'd done it 1,000 times before and could do it 1,000 times again without breaking a sweat. She leaned forward. I researched you last night on my phone. Ryan Mercer, born 1994, no criminal record, no significant online presence, no social media, no paper trail before 3 years ago. You're a ghost. Ryan's expression didn't change. Lots of people don't use social media. Not like this. You don't exist. Not really.
There's no college records, no employment history before this garage, no credit cards, no mortgage, no car loan. You pay everything in cash. You don't have a bank account under this name. You're either in witness protection, or you're hiding from something, or, she paused, or you're someone who knows how to completely erase themselves from the world. Maybe I just value my privacy. Nobody values privacy this much unless they have a reason. Amelia's voice went softer. What are you hiding from, Ryan? He stood up, walking to the sink and dumping out his cold coffee. You should eat something before you go. There's cereal in the cabinet. I'm not going. Ryan turned. Excuse me? I'm not leaving. Amelia stood up too, crossing her arms. Not until you agree to help me. That's not your decision to make. You're right. It's yours. But I'm not making it easy for you. Ryan stared at her. She stared back, chin lifted, defiant despite the bruises and the borrowed clothes and the fact that she was standing in a stranger's kitchen making demands she had no right to make. You're going to get yourself killed, he said quietly. Probably. But at least I'll die trying to do something right instead of hiding in a... She caught herself, but not fast enough. Say it, Ryan said, his voice dangerously level. Instead of hiding in a what? Amelia swallowed. I'm sorry, that was out of line. Yeah, it was. But you know I'm right. What I know, Ryan said, is that you're scared and desperate and not thinking clearly. What I know is that helping you means putting a target on my daughter's back. What I know is that 3 years ago I walked away from the life you're trying to drag me back into, and people died because of it. Good people, people I cared about. So no, you're not right. You're just asking me to make the same mistake twice. Amelia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, What happened 3 years ago? None of your business. Was it related to what you did before, the work you said was finished? Ryan didn't answer. Someone died, Amelia said slowly, reading his face. Someone close to you. That's why you're here. That's why you're hiding. You're not protecting Emma from some abstract threat. You're protecting her from something specific, something that already took someone from you. Ryan's hands curled into fists at his sides. It was your wife, Amelia whispered. Emma's mother. They killed her. Stop. How long ago? I said stop. Ryan, get out. His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried more weight than a shout. Right now, get your things and get out of my home. Amelia didn't move. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I don't care what you meant. Ryan walked past her toward the door, opening it. You can find somewhere else to hide. This isn't it. For a moment, Amelia just stood there. Then she walked to the living room, grabbed her ruined coat, and came back to the kitchen. She paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I understand. Losing someone like that. The kind of loss that breaks you in half and never quite lets you heal. I lost my father 6 months ago, and I still wake up every morning forgetting he's gone. So I get it. I get why you'd do anything to keep Emma safe. Why you'd give up everything to protect her. Ryan kept his eyes on the floor, eyes on. But hiding isn't protecting, Amelia continued. Not anymore. Those men know where you are now. They know you helped me. And people like that, they don't just forget. They don't just move on. They'll come back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And when they do, you'll have 2 choices. Run again or fight. I choose run, Ryan said flatly. Okay, so you run. You take Emma and disappear again. Start over somewhere new. New name, new city, new life. How long until they find you the next time? A year? 2? How many times can you uproot her before she starts asking questions you can't answer? How many times can you run before there's nowhere left to go? That's not your problem. You're right, it's not. Amelia pulled on her coat, wincing as the fabric brushed against her injuries. But here's the thing. If you help me, if we find whoever's behind this and expose them, then maybe they stop being your problem too. Maybe we end this instead of just delaying it. Ryan finally looked at her. You really believe that? I have to. Because if I don't believe we can stop them, then what's the point of any of this? She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. Thank you for last night, she said. For the couch, and the coffee, and the first aid kit.
For not turning me away when you had every right to, and for... She touched her forehead gently. For whatever you did down there. For being the kind of person who fights back instead of looking away. Then she was gone, the door clicking shut softly behind her. Ryan stood alone in his kitchen, listening to her footsteps descending the stairs. The garage door opened, closed. Silence. He walked to the window and watched her step out onto the street, looking both ways like someone who'd learned to be afraid of what came around corners. She turned left, heading toward the subway station 3 blocks away. She'd probably make it 2 blocks before they found her. Maybe less. Ryan closed his eyes. This wasn't his problem. Amelia Vaughn was a stranger who'd stumbled into his life and would stumble back out again. He owed her nothing. He'd already done more than most people would have, given her shelter, fixed her up, kept her alive through the night. That was enough. That was more than enough. Behind him, Emma's door opened. "Daddy, is Amelia still here?" Ryan turned. Emma was standing in her doorway wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with planets on them. Her hair was a mess. She was holding her stuffed elephant. "No, baby," Ryan said. "She had to go." "Oh." Emma looked disappointed. "I wanted to say goodbye. She was nice." "Yeah, she was." "Is she coming back?" Ryan crouched down so he was eye level with his daughter. "Probably not, Em. She has her own life to get back to." "But she was sad. I could tell." Emma hugged her elephant tighter. "When she was reading to me last night, she looked really, really sad. Like how you look sometimes when you think I'm not watching." Ryan's chest tightened. Sometimes grown-ups have problems that make them sad. It's normal. "Did you help her with her problem?" "I tried." "Is her problem fixed now?" "No." Emma frowned, thinking hard in that serious way 6-year-olds do when they're trying to figure out the world. "Mommy used to say that when people are sad and need help, we should help them if we can. She said that's what good people do." Ryan closed his eyes. "Your mommy was right. So why didn't you help Amelia more?" "It's complicated, baby." That's what you always say when you don't want to explain something. Ryan couldn't help but smile, even though it hurt. "You're too smart for your own good." "That's what you always say when I'm right." Emma walked over and wrapped her arms around his neck. "I think you should help her, Daddy. I think that's what Mommy would want." Ryan held his daughter close, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling the weight of her trust in him. She believed he could do anything. Fix motorcycles, fight bad guys, keep her safe, make the world better. She believed in him the way only children could believe, completely, without doubt, without understanding how fragile everything really was. And maybe that's what made his decision for him. Not Amelia's arguments or logic or desperation. Just Emma asking him to be the kind of person her mother had tried to be. The kind who helped, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. "Go get dressed for school," Ryan said, releasing her. "Brush your teeth. We're leaving in 20 minutes. "Okay." Emma started toward the bathroom, then paused. "Are you going to find Amelia?" Ryan looked at his daughter. "Yeah, I think I am." Emma smiled, the kind of smile that made everything hurt and everything feel possible at the same time. "Good. I like her." After Emma left for school, walked to the bus stop by Mrs. Chen from downstairs, who watched her every morning in exchange for Ryan fixing her car whenever it needed it, Ryan stood in his garage and made a phone call he'd sworn he'd never make again. It rang 4 times. Then a voice answered. "This number is no longer in service." Ryan waited 3 seconds and said, "Checkmate. Rook to King's Knight 7. Silence. Then the line clicked, and a different voice came on. Male, professional, carefully neutral. "Authentication phrase, please." "The sparrow flies at midnight." More silence. Ryan counted to 10. Then, "Jesus Christ, Mercer, that's impossible. You're dead." "Not yet, Marcus." Ryan leaned against his workbench. "I need information." "You need..." The man on the other end laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Do you have any idea what happened after you disappeared? The amount of resources we burned trying to find you? The questions we couldn't answer? You don't just call in favors after vanishing for 3 years." "I know, and I'm sorry, but this is important." "Everything was always important with you." A pause. "Why now? Why break silence after all this time?" "Because someone brought the fight to me, and I need to know who. Give me a name. Vaughn Global, luxury shipping company based in Manhattan. Someone's using them to move illegal cargo, probably weapons. The CEO is being hunted by professionals. Her father was killed 6 months ago, officially ruled a heart attack. Ryan heard typing on the other end.
Marcus Vaughn, the voice said after a moment. CEO and founder. Died February 14th. Massive coronary event, no prior history of heart disease. Autopsy was inconclusive. There were some irregularities in the blood work, but nothing definitive. Could have been poison, could have been stress. File was closed. Who closed it? NYPD, but there was federal oversight. Someone with juice wanted it to go away quietly. The daughter, Amelia Vaughn. What do you have on her?
More typing. 26 years old, MBA from Wharton, took over as CEO after her father's death. Company's been hemorrhaging money since. Stock price collapsed, major investors pulling out, rumors of SEC investigations. She's either incompetent or someone sabotaging her from the inside. That would be my read. Vaughn Global operates in 40 countries, handles billions in shipping logistics. If someone wanted to use those routes to move contraband, hijacking the company from within would be the cleanest way to do it. Who's someone? How should I know? I've been out for as long as you have, remember? I analyze data. I don't chase field operations anymore. But you still have access. Limited access to legacy databases, yes. Nothing current. Then check the legacy databases. Marcus Vaughn's death. Who had motive? Who benefits from Vaughn Global collapsing? Silence. Then, very carefully, Ryan, if you're asking what I think you're asking, the kind of people who operate at that level, who have the resources to compromise an entire international shipping operation, those aren't people you fight. Those are people you run from. I know. And you're calling anyway. Yeah. Why? What is she to you? Ryan thought about Amelia walking out his door this morning, heading toward danger with her chin up and her hands shaking. He thought about Emma asking him to be good, to help, to be the person her mother believed he could be. She's nobody, Ryan said. Just someone who needs help. That's not a good enough reason to die, Mercer. Maybe not. But it's good enough to try, Marcus sighed. I'll see what I can find. But this is it, understand? After this, we're done. You burned those bridges when you disappeared. I'm only helping now because I owe you one, and after this, the debt's paid. Fair enough? Where are you? You know I won't answer that. Right. Of course. A pause. Be careful, Ryan. Whatever you're walking into, it's bigger than one girl and one company. It always is, Ryan said, and ended the call. He had 3 hours before Emma got out of school. That gave him enough time to find Amelia, assuming she was still alive. Ryan grabbed his jacket, locked the garage, and headed out onto the Brooklyn streets with a destination in mind and a cold certainty settling in his bones. This was a mistake. But he was making it anyway. Because sometimes the only choice was between different kinds of wrong, and you just had to pick the one you could live with, or in this case, the one Emma could forgive him for. Ryan found her 6 blocks from his garage, sitting on a bench outside a shuttered laundromat with her head in her hands. She looked up when his shadow fell across her, and for a second something like hope flickered in her expression before she killed it. Changed your mind? Her voice was flat. Something like that. Ryan sat down beside her, leaving space between them. You made it further than I thought you would. I got lost. Turned the wrong way at the intersection. Amelia laughed, but it came out broken. Couldn't even run away properly. Good thing you're bad at directions, then. She looked at him sideways. Why are you here, Ryan? Because my daughter asked me to help you. And I'm trying to be the kind of father who teaches her that helping people matters, even when it's stupid and dangerous and probably going to get us all killed. That's a terrible reason. Yeah, well, I'm full of terrible reasons. Ryan leaned back against the bench, watching the street. Still no SUVs, but they'd come eventually. They always did. I made some calls, found out some things about your situation. Amelia straightened. What kind of things? The kind that confirm everything you told me last night. Your father's death wasn't natural. The autopsy had irregularities that suggest poison, but someone with federal connections buried the investigation. And Vaughn Global isn't just bleeding money, it's being systematically gutted from the inside.
I knew it. Amelia's voice went hard. I knew he didn't just die. Everyone kept telling me I was paranoid, that I was looking for conspiracies because I couldn't accept what happened. But I knew. Knowing and proving are different things. So how do we prove it? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, We don't. Not yet. First we keep you alive. Then we figure out who's behind this. Then we burn them down so completely they never come after you again. Just like that? Just like that. Amelia stared at him. You say it like it's simple. It's not simple, but it's doable. Ryan stood up. Come on. We need to move. Those men from last night will be canvassing the area, and sitting still makes you an easy target. Where are we going? Somewhere they won't look. 20 minutes later, they were standing outside a boxing gym in Red Hook that looked like it had been forgotten by time in the city planning department. The windows were grimy, the sign above the door hung crooked, and the whole building leaned slightly to the left like it was too tired to stand up straight. This is your safe house? Amelia asked doubtfully. This is where we get answers. Ryan pulled open the door. And maybe a few other things. Inside, the gym was exactly what you'd expect. Concrete floors, heavy bags hanging from chains, the smell of old sweat and leather, a boxing ring in the center that had seen better decades. 3 men were working out, none of them looking up when Ryan and Amelia entered. Ryan walked straight to the back, where a door marked office stood slightly ajar. He knocked twice, paused, knocked 3 more times. It's open, a voice called from inside. The office was small and cluttered with papers, file boxes, and outdated equipment that probably didn't work anymore. Behind a desk that had more coffee rings than surface area sat a man in his late 50s with salt and pepper hair, scars threading through one eyebrow, and the kind of eyes that had seen everything and weren't impressed by any of it. He looked up when Ryan entered, and his expression went through several emotions very quickly. Surprise, disbelief, anger, and finally something that might have been amusement. Well, he said slowly, look what the cat dragged in. Hello, Tommy. Ryan Mercer. Or is it still Mercer? Hard to keep track of what name you're using these days. Tommy leaned back in his chair, studying Ryan with unsettling focus. Heard you were dead. Multiple reliable sources confirmed it. I'm aware. And yet here you are, breathing, walking, bringing strangers into my gym. Tommy's gaze shifted to Amelia. Who's the girl? Someone who needs help. Don't they always? Tommy pulled out a cigarette, lit it despite the no smoking sign on his own wall. What kind of help we talking about? The kind that involves people who kill CEOs and hijack shipping companies. Tommy took a long drag, exhaled slowly. That's a very specific kind of help. I know. The kind of help that gets people disappeared. I know that too. Tommy studied Ryan for another long moment. Then he said, Shut the door. Ryan did. Tommy gestured to 2 chairs facing the desk. Ryan and Amelia sat. Talk, Tommy said. Ryan did. He laid out everything. Amelia's father, Vaughn Global, the smuggling operation, the attempted kidnapping, the men outside his garage. Tommy listened without interrupting, his expression never changing, ash from his cigarette growing longer until it fell onto papers he didn't seem to care about. When Ryan finished, Tommy was quiet for a full minute. Then he said, You're an idiot. Probably. You spent 3 years building a life off the grid. 3 years keeping your head down, staying invisible, protecting that little girl of yours. And you're willing to throw all of that away for this? Tommy gestured at Amelia. Yes. Why? Because Emma asked me to. Tommy laughed, a rough, bitter sound. Jesus. You always did have a death wish wrapped up in a hero complex. He crushed out his cigarette. Fine. What do you need? Information, resources, a safe place to operate from. That's a big ask. I know. Last time you made a big ask, half our network ended up dead or in prison. Ryan's jaw tightened. I know that too. And you think I should help you anyway? No, but I'm asking. Tommy stared at him. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. You know what? I always liked you, Mercer. Even when you were a self-righteous pain in my ass who thought he could save the world one financial crime at a time. You had conviction. That's rare. He pulled out another cigarette. But this girl's problem, this isn't your fight. It is now. Because Emma asked? Because those men know where I live. They know I have a daughter. They won't stop until either Amelia's dead or I am, and probably both. So yeah, it's my fight now, whether I want it to be or not. Tommy nodded slowly. Fair point. He looked at Amelia. You understand what you're asking him to do? I think so, Amelia said quietly. No, you don't. Tommy leaned forward. 3 years ago, Ryan Mercer was one of the most effective financial investigators in the shadow world. He could trace money through 50 shell companies, 6 countries, and a dozen encrypted accounts before breakfast. He brought down arms dealers, drug cartels, human traffickers, anyone stupid enough to leave a paper trail. And he was good at it. So good that he made enemies with very long memories and very deep pockets. Amelia glanced at Ryan. He kept his eyes on Tommy. Then, one day, Tommy continued, someone decided to send him a message. They murdered his wife. Made it look like a car accident, but it wasn't. It was a hit, clean and professional. And Ryan did what Ryan does. He went after them, found every person connected to the order, every financier who funded it, every shell corporation that paid for it. Then he burned it all down. Good, Amelia said. Tommy shook his head. No, not good. Because when you burn down one syndicate, you expose yourself to all the others. And suddenly, everyone in that world knows your name, knows your face, knows you're the guy who brought down the Volkov network. You become a target for every criminal organization that thinks you might look at them next. Ryan spoke for the first time since Tommy started talking. That's why I disappeared. That's why you should have stayed disappeared. Tommy lit his second cigarette. But you didn't. So now we're here, and I'm trying to decide if helping you is loyalty or stupidity. Can it be both? Tommy laughed again. Yeah, I guess it can. He opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, tossed it across the desk. Vaughn Global. I already did some digging after you called Marcus. You always did telegraph your moves. Ryan opened the folder. Inside were financial records, shipping manifests, personnel files, more information than should have been possible to gather in 3 hours. How did you... I run a boxing gym in Red Hook. What do you think that means? Ryan looked up. You're still in the game. I never left. I just got better at pretending. Tommy tapped ash onto his floor. Vaughn Global has been compromised for at least 18 months, maybe longer. Someone's been using their shipping routes to move military-grade weapons to buyers in 6 countries. The operation's sophisticated. Manifests are altered at the source level. Customs documentation is perfect. And there's enough legitimate cargo mixed in that inspections don't catch anything. Amelia was reading over Ryan's shoulder. Who's running it? That's the question, isn't it? Tommy pulled out another sheet. These are the people with access to modify shipping manifests at Vaughn Global. 37 names. Could be any of them. Could be all of them. Ryan scanned the list. What about her fiancé? Ah. Yes. Mr. David Chen. Harvard MBA, 3 years as chief financial officer, engaged to Miss Vaughn for 6 months. Tommy pulled up something on his computer, turned the screen so they could see it. Also owns property in the Cayman Islands purchased through a shell company that traces back to a hedge fund that specializes in distressed assets. The kind of fund that benefits when companies like Vaughn Global collapse. Amelia went pale. David's been betting against my own company? Not just betting, actively working to destroy it while looking like the loyal lieutenant trying to save it. Tommy showed them another document. He's been in contact with 4 of your board members, all of whom have been quietly selling their shares at a loss for 6 months. They know something big is coming. What's coming? Ryan asked. Best guess? They're going to force a bankruptcy, buy the company for pennies on the dollar, then resell it to one of the criminal organizations that's been using it for smuggling, clean everything up, make it legitimate again, and sell it at a massive profit. Everyone wins except the Vaughn family. Amelia stood up abruptly, walking to the far side of the small office. Her hands were shaking. Ryan watched her for a moment, then looked back at Tommy. Can you prove any of this? Some of it, not all. Chen's been careful. The smoking gun is probably in Vaughn Global's internal servers, which you'll need physical access to retrieve. Where are they located? Manhattan, corporate headquarters, 42nd floor, secured building, keycard access, security cameras everywhere. So impossible. For most people, yes. Tommy smiled. But you're not most people.
Ryan closed the folder. I'll need equipment. Clean phones, encrypted laptops, access to financial databases. Done. And somewhere to work from. Somewhere they won't find us. Tommy gestured around the office. You're looking at it. I've got a space in the basement. Used to be storage, now it's just empty. You can set up there. What's this going to cost me? Let's call it a favor to be named later. Ryan met his eyes. Those kinds of favors tend to be expensive. So don't fuck this up and you won't owe me one. Tommy stood up. I'll have everything ready in 2 hours. In the meantime, there's a shower in the back and some clean clothes in the locker room. Your friend looks like she's been sleeping on a couch. Amelia turned from where she'd been staring at the wall. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this because Ryan saved my life once, and I pay my debts. Tommy looked at Ryan. But after this, we're even. You vanish again, and you stay vanished. Deal? Deal. After Tommy left, Amelia sat back down. She looked exhausted, like the weight of everything was finally catching up to her.
I trusted him, she said quietly. David, I thought he loved me. I thought we were building a life together, and the whole time he was... Her voice cracked. The whole time he was destroying everything my father built. People are good at lying, Ryan said, especially when there's money involved. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, it's supposed to make you understand that this isn't your fault. You trusted someone you loved. That's not weakness. Amelia laughed bitterly. It feels like weakness. It's not. It's human. Ryan leaned back in his chair. David Chen knew exactly what he was doing. He's probably been planning this since before he met you. Men like that, they're predators. They look for vulnerabilities and exploit them. So what do? We beat him at his own game. How?
Ryan pulled out his phone, the encrypted one he'd been carrying for years and never used. We gather evidence. We expose the smuggling operation. We prove your father was murdered. And then we make sure everyone involved spends the rest of their lives in prison, or worse. Just like that. Just like that. Amelia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Why are you doing this? Really? Not because Emma asked. The real reason. Ryan thought about lying. Thought about giving her something simple and clean, but she deserved better than that. Because 3 years ago I gave up, he said finally. After my wife died, after I brought down the people responsible, I walked away. Told myself I was protecting Emma by disappearing, by becoming nobody. But the truth is I was protecting myself. I was too scared to keep fighting because fighting got Sarah killed and I couldn't... He stopped. I couldn't lose anyone else. And now? Now I'm realizing that hiding didn't make us safer. It just made us smaller. Emma deserves to grow up believing the world can be better, that fighting for what's right matters, and I can't teach her that if I'm too afraid to do it myself. Amelia reached over and took his hand, just held it, her fingers cold against his. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. We haven't won anything. No, but at least now I'm not fighting alone. They sat like that for a moment, her hand in his, the small office quiet around them. Then Ryan's phone buzzed. It was Marcus, the contact from earlier. The message was short. Someone just put a price on your head. $500,000. You're officially back on the radar. Ryan showed Amelia the message. How bad is that? She asked. Bad. It means they know I'm helping you, and they're willing to pay serious money to stop me. So what do? Ryan stood up. We move faster than they do. The basement Tommy had mentioned was exactly as advertised. A concrete space that smelled like mildew and forgotten equipment. But it was private, and there was power. And after 2 hours, it looked like a functional operations center thanks to the equipment Tommy had provided. 3 laptops, all running encrypted operating systems. 4 burner phones. A scanner. A printer. And most importantly, a secure connection to databases Ryan thought he'd never access again. He sat at one of the laptops while Amelia paced behind him, too wired to sit still. What are you looking for? She asked. Patterns. Money leaves traces even when people try to hide it. Every transaction, every wire transfer, every shell company has to connect somewhere. I just need to find the thread and pull. How long will that take? Could be hours, could be days. We don't have days. Then it'll be hours. Amelia stopped pacing. Can I help? Ryan glanced at her.
You know anything about forensic accounting? I have an MBA. I took accounting classes. This is different. This is following money through layers of deliberate obfuscation designed by people who don't want to be found. Then teach me. Ryan studied her. She looked determined, her jaw set in that stubborn way he was starting to recognize. Fine, he said. Sit down. She did. For the next 3 hours, Ryan walked her through the basics. How to read shell company filings, how to trace wire transfers through international banks, how to spot the signatures of different money laundering techniques. Amelia absorbed it all with fierce concentration, asking questions that were smarter than he expected. She was good at this. Better than good. Around 8 o'clock, Ryan's phone buzzed. It was Tommy. Someone's asking questions about you in the neighborhood. 2 men showing your picture. Figured you should know. Ryan texted back, thanks. We're staying down here tonight. Tommy, there's a cot in the corner and some blankets in the locker room. Don't burn my gym down. Ryan smiled despite everything. Then he looked at Amelia. We're being hunted, he said. Actively. They're canvassing neighborhoods, showing my picture around. It's only a matter of time before someone talks. What about Emma? Amelia's eyes went wide. If they're looking for you, she's safe. I already made arrangements. Ryan had called Mrs. Chen earlier, asked her to keep Emma overnight and take her to school in the morning. He'd told her there was a gas leak in the apartment, that it wasn't safe. Mrs. Chen had agreed without questions because she was that kind of neighbor. You're sure? I'm sure. Amelia relaxed slightly. Okay, so what now? Now we work. Ryan turned back to his laptop. Because the faster we expose this operation, the faster they stop hunting us. They worked through the night. At some point, Tommy brought down sandwiches and coffee that tasted like it had been made in a pot that hadn't been cleaned since the Clinton administration. Ryan drank it anyway. So did Amelia. Around 3 in the morning, Ryan found something. There, he said, pointing at his screen. Amelia leaned in. What am I looking at? Vaughn Global made a payment 6 weeks ago to a company called Meridian Consulting, $25,000 for logistics advisory services. So Meridian Consulting doesn't exist. Not really. It's a shell company registered in Delaware with no employees, no office, no actual operations. But it has a bank account. And that bank account received payments from 11 other companies in the last year, all of them for amounts under $50,000. Structuring, Amelia said, keeping payments small to avoid reporting requirements. Exactly. And look where the money goes after Meridian. Ryan clicked through several screens. It moves to another shell company, then another, 6 layers deep. And at the end of the chain, he pulled up a final document. A property management company that owns a warehouse in Staten Island. What's in the warehouse? That's what we're going to find out. Amelia looked at him. When? Tomorrow night. We need to do reconnaissance first, figure out security, plan and approach. Going in blind gets people killed. Have you done this before? Breaking into warehouses? Not warehouses specifically, but buildings, yes. Secured locations, places people don't want you to be. Ryan closed his laptop. You should get some sleep. We've got a long day ahead. What about you? I'll sleep after. Someone needs to keep watch. Amelia started to argue, then seemed to realize it wouldn't work. She walked to the cot in the corner, lay down without bothering to take off her shoes. Ryan watched her fall asleep, her face softening, the tension finally draining away. She looked younger when she slept, less like a CEO fighting for her life and more like someone who should have been worried about normal things, bills, relationships, what to have for dinner. But normal things didn't matter when people were trying to kill you. Ryan turned back to his laptop and kept digging. By morning, he had a name. Not the person running the operation, not yet, but someone connected to it. Someone high up in Vaughn Global who'd been making suspicious payments for 18 months. Martin Cross, Senior Vice President of Operations, 20-year veteran of the company, trusted by Amelia's father, probably trusted by Amelia too. Ryan pulled up everything he could find on Cross. Financial records, property ownership, family connections. The man lived well, too well for someone making $300,000 a year. Multiple properties, luxury cars, a boat he didn't have time to use, all of it funded by money that came from somewhere other than his salary. When Amelia woke up around 9, Ryan showed her what he'd found.
She stared at Martin Cross's picture for a long time.
I've known him since I was 12, she said finally. He used to bring me candy when he visited my father's office. He came to my college graduation. When my father died, he was one of the people who helped me. She stopped. He helped me take over the company, walked me through everything I needed to know. Sorry, Ryan said. Stop saying that. Stop being sorry for things that aren't your fault. Amelia's voice went hard. How do we prove it?
We get inside that warehouse. We document what's there. We connect it back to Cross and everyone else involved. And then we hand everything to the FBI. And if the FBI is compromised, if someone there is on their payroll, then we leak it everywhere. Media, Congress, every watchdog organization we can find. Make it too big to bury. Amelia nodded slowly. When do we go? Tonight, after dark. I need to pick up Emma from school first, make sure she's safe. Then we move. I'm coming with you, to the warehouse. No. Yes. Amelia, it's my company, my father's legacy. I'm not sitting in a basement while you risk your life for it. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her that she'd just slow him down, that she wasn't trained for this, that she'd get hurt or worse. But looking at her face, at the determination there, the refusal to back down, he realized she'd just follow him anyway.
Fine, he said, but you do exactly what I say when I say it. No questions, no arguments. Deal. They spent the day preparing. Ryan walked Amelia through basic protocols, how to move quietly, how to stay in shadows, what to do if something went wrong. She listened carefully, taking it all seriously, and Ryan found himself impressed despite his reservations. She was tougher than she looked. At 3:30, Ryan left to pick up Emma. He took a circuitous route, doubling back twice, watching for tails. When he was satisfied no one was following, he collected his daughter from the bus stop where Mrs. Chen had dropped her off. Emma threw her arms around him. Daddy, Mrs. Chen said our apartment smells funny. Just a small problem. It'll be fixed soon. Ryan knelt down to her level. Listen, baby, I need you to stay with Mrs. Chen for a few more nights. Is that okay? Emma's face fell. Why? Because I'm helping that friend we talked about. Remember? Amelia? Oh. Emma brightened slightly. Is she okay? She's getting there, but I need to make sure she's safe, and that means I might be working late. So you'll stay with Mrs. Chen, go to school like normal, and I'll come see you every day. Okay? Okay. Emma hugged him tighter. Are you being careful, Daddy? Always, baby. Promise? I promise. It was a lie. But it was the kind of lie parents told to keep their children from being afraid. After making sure Emma was settled with Mrs. Chen, Ryan returned to the gym. Amelia was waiting, dressed in dark clothes Tommy had provided. Jeans, a black sweater, boots that actually fit. Ready? Ryan asked. No, Amelia said honestly. But let's go anyway. They took Ryan's truck, an ancient Ford that looked like it might not make it to the corner, but ran better than most new cars. The drive to Staten Island took 40 minutes in evening traffic, the city lights reflecting off wet pavement as rain started to fall. The warehouse was in an industrial area that looked like the apocalypse had come early and decided to stay. Abandoned buildings, empty lots, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and nobody called the police. Ryan parked 3 blocks away, killed the engine. We go in quiet, he said. Stay behind me. If I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. They approached on foot, moving through shadows between buildings. The warehouse was larger than Ryan expected. 2 stories, multiple loading bays, razor wire on the fencing. Security cameras covered the approaches, but Ryan had studied the angles earlier and knew where the blind spots were. He led Amelia along the southern wall, staying low, moving quickly but carefully. The rain helped, muffling their footsteps. At the back of the building, Ryan found what he was looking for, a maintenance door with a lock he could pick. It took him 90 seconds. The door opened with a soft click. Inside, the warehouse was dark and quiet. Ryan pulled out a small flashlight, keeping the beam low and covered. The space was filled with shipping containers, stacked too high in some places, creating corridors and dead ends. Ryan moved forward carefully, Amelia close behind him. They'd made it maybe 50 feet when lights flooded the entire building, and a voice called out, "Hello, Ryan. We've been expecting you." Ryan's hand moved to his waistband before his brain caught up.
fingers finding the Glock he'd tucked there hours earlier. Amelia froze behind him, her breath catching audibly in the sudden silence that followed the voice. The man who stepped out from behind a shipping container was in his 50s, wearing an expensive suit that had no business being in a warehouse at night. Gray hair combed back, clean-shaven, the kind of face that belonged in boardrooms and country clubs. He was smiling. Ryan recognized him from the files. Martin Cross. "You can put the gun away," Cross said pleasantly. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. The fact that you're standing here means we should talk." "I don't talk to people who murder their friends," Ryan said, keeping the weapon trained on Cross's center mass. "Marcus Vaughn wasn't my friend. He was my employer. There's a difference." Cross took a step forward. Ryan's finger tightened on the trigger, and Cross stopped, hands raised in mock surrender. "Easy. I'm unarmed. See?" He opened his jacket slowly, showing nothing but expensive lining. "Where are your men?" Ryan asked. "What men?" "The ones who've been hunting Amelia, the ones who tried to kill her 3 times in the last week."
"Ah, those men." Cross smiled again, and it didn't reach his eyes. "They're not my men. They never were. I'm actually here to help." "Bullshit," Amelia said from behind Ryan. Her voice was shaking but firm. "You've been stealing from my company for 2 years. You killed my father." "I didn't kill your father, Miss Vaughn, though I understand why you'd think that." Cross pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lit one with a gold lighter. "May I speak plainly? Since we're all pretending to be civilized people having a civilized conversation in the middle of a weapon-smuggling warehouse?" Ryan didn't lower the gun. "Talk. Your father discovered the smuggling operation about 8 months before he died," Cross said, looking at Amelia. "He came to me because I was his most trusted advisor, told me everything he'd found, the altered manifests, the fake shipping routes, the shell companies. He asked me to help him investigate quietly." "And you killed him," Amelia said. "No, I tried to warn him." Cross took a drag from his cigarette. "I told him the people behind this weren't the kind you investigate. They were the kind you run from. But Marcus was stubborn, honorable. He believed in doing the right thing even when the right thing got you killed." "So what happened?" Ryan asked. "He kept digging, and they found out. Not from me. I was careful. But Marcus wasn't trained for this kind of work. He left traces, asked the wrong questions to the wrong people. And one morning he had a heart attack that wasn't a heart attack." Cross's expression flickered, something that might have been genuine regret. "I'm not sentimental, Mercer, but I didn't want him dead." "Then why are you here?" Amelia's voice went hard. "Why are you part of this?" "Because someone has to be." Cross walked to a shipping container, ran his hand along the metal surface. "After Marcus died, I had 2 choices. I could try to expose the operation and end up dead like him, or I could play along, keep my position, and wait for an opportunity to bring it down from the inside. I chose survival." "While stealing millions," Ryan said. "A necessary fiction. The money goes into accounts they monitor. If I didn't take my cut, they'd know something was wrong. It's all still there, by the way, every dollar, in an account waiting to be returned to Vaughn Global when this is over." Cross looked at Amelia. "I'm not a thief, Miss Vaughn. I'm a coward. There's a difference." Ryan studied him, trying to read whether any of this was true. Cross had the posture of a man who believed what he was saying, but that didn't mean much. Good liars always believe their own lies. "Who are they?" Ryan asked. "Who's running this operation?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Cross dropped his cigarette, crushed it under his shoe. "It's not one person. It's a network. 3 corporations, 2 foreign governments, and approximately 40 individuals spread across a dozen countries. They use Vaughn Global because it's clean, because it has legitimate contracts with ports in 60 countries, because no one looks twice at a luxury shipping company." "Names," Ryan said. "I'll give you names, I'll give you bank accounts, shipping manifests, recorded conversations, everything I've collected over the past 6 months." Cross reached into his jacket pocket slowly. Ryan's gun tracked the movement. Cross pulled out a flash drive, held it up. "It's all here?" "Why?" Amelia asked. "If you have all that, why didn't you go to the FBI yourself?" "Because the FBI has been compromised. At least 3 agents in the New York field office are on the payroll. If I'd gone to them, I'd be dead before I made it out of the building." Cross looked at Ryan. "But you have experience with this."
You know how to leak information to the right people, how to make sure it can't be buried. That's why I let you find this place. That's why I've been waiting for you to show up. Ryan's mind was racing. This could be a trap. Probably was a trap. But the flash drive in Cross's hand represented the exact evidence they needed, handed over on a silver platter. Too convenient. How did you know we'd come here? Ryan asked. Because you're predictable. You traced the money to Meridian Consulting, which led you to this warehouse. It's what any competent investigator would do. I made sure the trail was clear enough to follow. Cross took a step forward. Ryan didn't move. The question is what happens next? Do you shoot me and search this warehouse yourself, probably tripping half a dozen alarms in the process? Or do you take this drive, verify its contents, and use it to bring down everyone responsible? Or, a new voice said from somewhere above them, you could die right here and save everyone a lot of trouble. Ryan spun, bringing the gun up, searching for the source. The voice had come from the catwalks above, metal walkways running along the warehouse's upper level. Then he saw them. 6 men, spreading out along the catwalks, each one carrying a rifle. Not handguns, not close-quarters weapons. Proper rifles with scopes and tactical lights. Professional killers. Well, Cross said quietly, I was hoping we'd have more time before they arrived. You set us up, Amelia said. No, I set myself up too, if you notice. Cross looked genuinely annoyed. I told you I'm a coward, not a traitor. These gentlemen are here because someone knew you were investigating, and they correctly assumed you'd end up here eventually. I was hoping to give you the evidence before they showed up. Stop talking, one of the men above called down. He had an accent, Russian, maybe Ukrainian. All 3 of you, hands where we can see them. Ryan didn't lower his gun. His mind was calculating angles, cover positions, exit routes. None of them were good. They were in the open with 6 rifles trained on them from elevated positions. Even if he took out 2 or 3 men before they fired, the others would cut them down. This was what losing looked like. Ryan, Amelia whispered, what do we do? Something stupid, Ryan said. Then he fired. Not at the men with rifles, at the lights. The industrial bulbs shattered in sequence as Ryan put 3 rounds into them, plunging sections of the warehouse into darkness. Return fire erupted immediately, bullets sparking off concrete and metal, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Ryan grabbed Amelia and dove behind the nearest shipping container as Cross ran in the opposite direction. More gunfire. Something hot creased Ryan's shoulder. Not a direct hit, but close enough that he felt the burn. Are you hit? Amelia was pressed against him, her hands clutching his jacket. No, you? No. But we're trapped. She was right. They'd bought themselves maybe 30 seconds with the darkness, but the men above had tactical lights now, beams cutting through the shadows, searching, and there was only one exit, the door they'd come through, which was currently in a direct line of fire from at least 3 positions. Ryan looked around frantically. The shipping containers were stacked too high to climb quickly. No other doors visible. No windows. They were in a concrete box with 6 killers and nowhere to go. Then he saw it. On the side of the container they were hiding behind. A control panel. Numbers and letters stenciled beside it. This wasn't just a storage container. It was refrigerated, which meant power, which meant... Ryan holstered his gun and grabbed the panel, yanking it open. Inside was a mess of wiring and circuit breakers. He started pulling connections loose, working fast. What are you doing? Amelia hissed. Creating a distraction. How is breaking wires a distraction? You'll see. The refrigeration unit's compressor was still running. He could hear it humming above the shouts of the men searching for them. Ryan found the main power line, traced it back to a junction box mounted on the container's side. Industrial refrigeration units ran on serious voltage, serious enough to be dangerous if mishandled. Ryan ripped out the safety cutoff, then jammed the exposed wiring against the metal frame of the container. The spark was immediate and massive, jumping from the wire to the frame in a brilliant white flash. The entire container became electrified for maybe half a second before circuit breakers somewhere in the building tripped, and every light in the warehouse died. Complete darkness. Ryan had been expecting it. The men with rifles hadn't. Move, he told Amelia, pulling her forward. They ran through the blackness, Ryan counting steps, using memory of the layout he'd studied earlier. Behind them, confused shouting, flashlights clicking on,
Someone fired blindly, the muzzle flash revealing nothing useful.
Ryan's shoulder slammed into something hard. Another container. He'd miscounted. He adjusted course, pulling Amelia left, then right, weaving through the maze of metal boxes. His hand found a wall. Good. He followed it, moving fast, feeling for the door they'd entered through. Behind them, the tactical lights were organizing, beams sweeping in coordinated patterns. They had maybe 20 seconds before someone got smart and covered the exits. Ryan's hand hit the door frame. He fumbled for the handle, found it, pushed, locked. Someone had locked it from the outside.
Shit, Ryan breathed.
What?
Amelia was pressed against his back, breathing hard. We're locked in.
You said this was the exit.
It was an exit, past tense. So what do we... Gunfire erupted from somewhere in the darkness, but not aimed at them. Ryan heard shouting, then more gunfire, then an explosion that shook the entire building.
What the hell was that?
Amelia asked. Ryan didn't answer because he was trying to figure out the same thing. That explosion hadn't been a grenade. Too big. More like another explosion, closer this time. One of the shipping containers was on fire now, flames licking up the metal sides, providing enough light to see by. And in that light, Ryan saw them. More men, but not the ones who'd been hunting them. These were different, moving with military precision, wearing body armor, carrying weapons that looked like they'd been pulled from an armory. They were engaging the men on the catwalks, and they were winning.
Is this the FBI? Amelia asked.
No, Ryan said slowly. This is something else. One of the new arrivals was moving toward them, a large man with a scarred face that Ryan recognized even through the smoke and chaos. Tommy.
What the hell are you doing here? Ryan called over the
gunfire. Saving your ass! Tommy fired twice at someone on the catwalks, then moved to the locked door Ryan and Amelia were pressed against. He had bolt cutters. The lock came off in one clean cut. We need to move. Now. Who are these people? I called in some favors. Old friends who didn't appreciate criminals using their city for weapons smuggling. Tommy pushed the door open. Explanations later. Running now. They ran. Outside, the rain had turned heavy, coming down in sheets that made it hard to see more than a few feet. Tommy led them to a van parked behind a pile of rusted machinery. The side door was already open. Tommy shoved Ryan and Amelia inside, then climbed in after them. Drive, Tommy told whoever was behind the wheel. The van lurched forward, tires spinning on wet pavement before finding purchase. Through the back windows, Ryan could see the warehouse. Flames were visible through windows he hadn't noticed before. More gunfire. Someone screaming. What did you just do? Ryan asked Tommy. I just started a war. Tommy was reloading his weapon, hands steady despite the chaos they'd just escaped. Those men in the warehouse? They were Bratva, Russian mob. The people I brought? Let's call them concerned citizens with military training and a dislike for foreign criminals operating on American soil. You brought a militia to a gunfight. I brought solutions to a problem. There's a difference. Amelia was staring at the receding warehouse, her face pale. People are dying back there. Bad people, Tommy said flatly. The kind who kill CEOs and traffic weapons to terrorists. I'm not losing sleep over it. Did Cross make it out? Ryan asked. Who's Cross? The man we were talking to. 50s suit. Looked like an accountant who'd seen some things. Tommy shook his head. I saw 3 civilians when we breached. You two and a guy in his 20s who took a round to the chest 30 seconds after we entered. No one in a suit. Ryan closed his eyes. If Cross was dead, the flash drive was probably still back there, sitting in his jacket pocket or lost in the chaos. All that evidence, gone. Unless Cross had been lying about everything and the flash drive was empty or worse, loaded with malware meant to compromise their systems. Where are we going? Amelia asked. Somewhere safe, Tommy said. Somewhere they won't think to look. The van drove for 20 minutes, taking a route through Brooklyn that seemed deliberately complicated. Ryan recognized the counter-surveillance pattern. Multiple turns, doubling back, speed variations to spot tails. Whoever was driving knew what they were doing. They finally stopped in front of a brownstone in Park Slope, the kind of building that looked like it had been there since before the neighborhood got expensive. Tommy opened the van door, gestured for them to get out. This is your safe house? Ryan asked.
This is my sister's house. She's in Florida for the month. No one knows about this place except family. Tommy led them to the door, produced a key. You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. Inside, the house was exactly what you'd expect from a Brooklyn brownstone. Narrow hallways, creaky floors, furniture that had been nice in 1987. But it was clean and warm and, most importantly, empty. Tommy walked them to a bedroom on the second floor. Get some rest. I'll post someone outside to keep watch.
Thank you, Amelia said quietly.
Tommy looked at her for a long moment. Your father was a good man. He tried to do the right thing in a world that punishes people for that. I respected him. He turned to Ryan. Don't make me regret helping you. After Tommy left, Ryan and Amelia sat on the edge of the bed, neither of them speaking for several minutes. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion and the shakes that always came after combat. I thought we were going to die, Amelia said finally. We almost did, but we didn't. Because Tommy showed up. Because you knew someone who could call in favors. She looked at him. How many people do you know who can start a war in a warehouse on 12 hours' notice? Not many. And I owe him more than I can probably ever repay. Amelia was quiet again. Then she said, Cross was telling the truth, wasn't he? About trying to help. Maybe. Or maybe he was a better liar than we gave him credit for. You think he made it out? I think anyone who wasn't wearing body armor and carrying an automatic weapon probably didn't make it out of that warehouse alive. Ryan stood up, walked to the window. The street outside was quiet, just normal Brooklyn on a rainy night. But if he did survive, if that flash drive was real, then he's our best chance at proving everything. And if it wasn't real, then we're back to square one, except now there are a lot of dead Russians and someone very angry about that. Amelia lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. This is insane. 3 days ago, my biggest problem was a board meeting I wasn't prepared for. Now I'm hiding in a stranger's house while mobsters hunt me and people die in warehouses. Welcome to my world, Ryan said without turning from the window. Is it always like this? No. Usually it's worse. That surprised a laugh out of her. Not a happy laugh, but something genuine. How did you live like this? For years? You get used to it. The adrenaline, the fear, the constant feeling that someone's about to put a bullet in your back. Eventually it becomes normal and normal life starts feeling strange. Ryan finally turned to look at her. That's when you know you need to get out. When violence feels comfortable and peace feels wrong. Is that why you left? Part of it. The other part was lying in a hospital room, visiting my wife's body, realizing that everything I'd done, every criminal I'd caught, every operation I'd disrupted, didn't matter because the people I'd fought had still taken her from me. And they did it to send a message. Not because she was a threat, just because she was married to me. Amelia sat up. I'm sorry.
Everyone's sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. Ryan's voice was flat. What brought her back was me disappearing. Me becoming nobody. Me spending 3 years fixing motorcycles and raising Emma in a neighborhood where nobody asks questions. That brought her back. Or at least it honored her memory by keeping Emma safe. Until I showed up. Until you showed up, Ryan agreed. But that's not your fault. Those men would have found me eventually. I was kidding myself thinking I could hide forever. So what happens now? Now we figure out who's running this operation. We gather evidence, we expose them, and we make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Just like that. Just like that. Amelia stood up, walked over to where Ryan was standing. They were close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something expensive that smelled like lavender and money. Thank you, she said, for not giving up, for not running, for being the kind of person who fights instead of hides. I am hiding. That's what this house is. No, you're regrouping. There's a difference. She reached up, touched his face gently. You have blood on your cheek. Ryan raised his hand to his face, felt the wet stickiness he hadn't noticed. Must have been from the explosion, some piece of debris catching him. It's not mine. That doesn't make it better. They stood like that for a moment, her hand on his face, his eyes meeting hers. Then Ryan stepped back. You should get some sleep, he said. What about you? I need to make some calls, figure out what our next move is. Ryan? Sleep, Amelia. We've got a long day tomorrow. She looked like she wanted to argue,
but exhaustion was winning. She nodded, kicked off her shoes, and lay back down on the bed. Within minutes, her breathing had evened out. Ryan stood by the window, watching the street, his mind racing. The warehouse had been a trap, but not the kind he'd expected. Cross had been there, offering help, and then the Bratva had shown up, and then Tommy had shown up, and now multiple people were dead and Ryan still didn't have answers. But he had something else. He pulled out his phone, opened the encrypted browser, and started searching for news about the warehouse. Nothing yet. Too soon. But by morning it would be all over the news. Multiple deaths, automatic weapons, possible terrorism ties. The police would be investigating. The FBI would get involved. And everyone connected to that warehouse would be scrambling to cover their tracks, which meant this was the moment to strike. When people were panicking, they made mistakes. They reached out to co-conspirators for reassurance. They moved money to safer accounts. They tried to disappear. And all of that left traces. Ryan worked through the night, cross-referencing names from Tommy's files with financial records he probably shouldn't have had access to anymore. Martin Cross was officially listed as missing, no body found in the warehouse wreckage, which meant he'd either escaped or been taken. Ryan was betting on escaped. Around 4 in the morning, he found something interesting. A wire transfer from one of the shell companies they'd identified earlier, $50,000, moved 8 hours ago to an account in Grand Cayman. The timing was suspicious, right around when Cross would have been leaving the warehouse or shortly after. Ryan traced the receiving account. It had been opened 6 months ago with a fake name and a Delaware address that didn't exist. But the IP address used to access the account showed a pattern. Someone in Manhattan logging in every morning around 7, staying online for about 30 minutes, then logging off. Professional behavior. Routine. Whoever owned that account was disciplined enough to maintain operational security, but human enough to fall into patterns. Ryan started building a profile. The access times suggested someone with a day job, probably in finance or business. The account balance, now sitting at just over $3 million, suggested years of payoffs, not recent activity. This was someone high up in the organization, someone with access, someone who'd been at this for a while. By the time the sun started coming up, Ryan had narrowed it down to 12 possible individuals, all of them connected to Vaughn Global or its business partners, all of them with the right access and the right financial history. One name stood out. David Chen, Amelia's fiancé. Ryan stared at the screen, looking at transaction records that painted a clear picture. Chen hadn't just been betting against Vaughn Global. He'd been one of the architects of its destruction. The payments went back 2 years, long before Marcus Vaughn's death, which meant Chen had been planning this from the beginning, maybe even before he'd started dating Amelia. It was brutal, efficient, completely sociopathic, and Ryan was going to make him pay for it. When Amelia woke up around 8, Ryan was still sitting by the window with his laptop. She walked over, saw what he was looking at, and her face went pale. "That's David's account." "Yeah." "How much has he—" She stopped, reading the total. $3 million. That's just this one account. He probably has others. Ryan closed the laptop. "I'm sorry." "Stop saying that," Amelia said again, but there was no force behind it this time. She sat down on the floor, her back against the wall, and just breathed for a minute. "I loved him, or I thought I did. I thought we were building something real. Maybe he thought so too at first. Then the money got involved and everything else stopped mattering. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to help you understand that this wasn't about you. You were just an asset to him, a means to an end. And once you stopped being useful, you became a liability." Amelia laughed bitterly. "So romantic. The people behind this, they don't think like normal people. They can't afford to. Every relationship is transactional. Every connection is leverage. That's how they survive." Ryan stood up. "But it's also how we're going to bring them down." "How?" "Because David Chen thinks you're running scared. He thinks he's won. And people who think they've won get careless." Ryan pulled out his phone. "We're going to give him exactly what he expects. A desperate heiress looking for a way out. Someone willing to deal. You want me to contact him? I want you to walk into the lion's den with a smile and a wire. We get him talking, we get him to confess, and then we make sure everyone hears it." Amelia stood up slowly.
He'll know it's a trap. Maybe, but his ego won't let him believe it. Men like David Chen think they're the smartest person in every room. We're going to use that against him. When? Today. The longer we wait, the more time he has to disappear. Ryan looked at her seriously. But this is dangerous. If he realizes what we're doing, he'll kill you without hesitation. So I need you to be sure, really sure. Because once we start this, there's no backing out.
Amelia met his eyes.
I'm sure. He killed my father. He tried to kill me. He's destroying everything my family built. So yes, I'm sure. Then let's end this. The wire was smaller than Amelia expected, no bigger than a button, taped against her skin just below her collarbone where a necklace might hide it. Tommy had provided it along with a receiver that Ryan now wore in his ear, sitting 3 blocks away in a coffee shop with a laptop and enough nervous energy to power the entire grid. Testing, Amelia said quietly, adjusting her coat in the mirror of the brownstone's bathroom. Ryan's voice came through the earpiece she wore, disguised as a wireless earbud. I hear you. Volume's good. Remember? Get him talking about your father, about the company, about what happens next. The more details, the better. And if he figures it out, then you walk away. Don't argue, don't explain, just leave. He won't let me just leave. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then I'll make sure you can. Tommy has people positioned around the building. You're not alone in this. Amelia stared at her reflection. She'd dressed carefully, expensive but understated, the kind of outfit that said she was still the CEO of a billion-dollar company, even if that company was collapsing. Her hands were shaking slightly. She pressed them flat against the marble countertop. I can do this, she said, more to herself than to Ryan. I know you can. The meeting was set for 11 at David's apartment in Tribeca, the penthouse he'd bought last year with money Amelia now understood hadn't come from his salary. She'd called him 2 hours earlier, her voice carefully broken, asking if they could talk. Just the two of them. She needed him. She didn't know who else to trust. David had agreed immediately, his voice warm and concerned in exactly the way that made her stomach turn now. Of course they could talk. He'd been worried about her. Where had she been? Was she safe? Such a good performance. The cab ride into Manhattan felt surreal, like she was watching herself from outside her body. The city moved past the windows, people rushing to meetings, tourists taking photos, delivery trucks blocking intersections. Normal life. Continuing like the world wasn't ending. Ryan's voice in her ear. You're doing great. Just breathe. In and out. I'm breathing. Good. Keep doing that. Despite everything, Amelia smiled. Is this what you did? Before? Talked people through situations like this? Sometimes. Other times I was the one wearing the wire. Did you ever get caught? Twice. What happened? I'm still here, aren't I? That didn't actually answer the question, but they were pulling up to David's building and there wasn't time for follow-up. Amelia paid the driver, stepped out onto the sidewalk, and looked up at the glass tower that held her fiancé's apartment 30 floors above the street. Former fiancé, she corrected herself, though she was still wearing the ring he'd given her 6 months ago. Part of the costume. Part of the lie she needed him to believe. The doorman recognized her, smiled, waved her through without calling up. She'd been here dozens of times. She belonged here. Or she used to. The elevator ride took 45 seconds. Amelia counted every one of them, focusing on the numbers instead of the fear clawing at her chest. Ryan's voice had gone quiet, giving her space, but she knew he was listening, knew that 3 blocks away he was probably gripping his coffee cup hard enough to crack it. The elevator opened directly into David's apartment, a feature that had seemed romantic when they'd first started dating. Private, intimate. Now it felt like a trap. David was waiting in the living room, standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Hudson River. He turned when she entered, and his face lit up with what looked like genuine relief. Amelia, thank God. He crossed the room quickly, reaching for her. She let him pull her into a hug, forcing herself not to stiffen, not to pull away. His cologne was familiar, something expensive she'd bought him for his birthday. I've been so worried. You disappeared. You weren't answering calls. I'm sorry. Amelia stepped back, wiping at her eyes, even though there were no tears. I panicked. After everything that's happened, I didn't know who to trust. You can trust me. You know that. David guided her to the couch, sat beside her, took her hands. His grip was warm,
steady. Lying hands. Tell me what happened. Where have you been? Hiding. Moving between hotels, paying cash, trying to figure out who's behind all of this. Amelia looked at him, letting vulnerability show in her expression. Someone's destroying the company, David. Someone inside. And I think they killed my father. David's face shifted through careful emotions. Surprise, concern, protective anger, all perfectly calibrated. That's a serious accusation. I know, but the numbers don't lie. Someone's been using our shipping routes for illegal cargo. They've been doing it for years, and when my father found out, they murdered him. Her voice cracked authentically on the last word. And now they're trying to kill me too. Amelia, I need your help. She squeezed his hands. You're the only person I trust completely. The only one who's been honest with me through all of this. I need you to help me figure out who's behind it. David was quiet for a long moment, studying her face, looking for cracks in the performance, looking for the trap. Amelia held his gaze, letting him see fear and desperation and love, or what passed for it. Finally, David smiled. It was gentle, reassuring, completely false. Of course I'll help you, he said. Tell me everything you know. So she did. Or rather, she told him a version of the truth carefully edited to make her seem like she was one step behind instead of one step ahead. She mentioned the shell companies, but said she couldn't trace them further. She mentioned Martin Cross, but said he'd disappeared before she could question him. She mentioned the warehouse, but said she'd been too scared to go there. David listened, nodding at the right moments, asking questions that sounded helpful, but were really checking how much she actually knew. When she finished, he stood up and walked to the bar, poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed her one. You've been through hell, he said. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you. You're here now. That's what matters. David sat back down, closer this time. I need to tell you something I probably should have told you months ago. Amelia's heart rate spiked. In her ear, she heard Ryan's breathing change. They were both listening. I know about the smuggling operation, David said quietly. Amelia didn't have to fake her surprise. What? I've known for about a year. Your father came to me, asked me to help him investigate quietly. We were working together to gather evidence when he died. David's voice was perfectly calibrated, grief mixed with determination. After that, I kept digging on my own. I've been trying to protect you by handling this myself, but it's gotten too dangerous. The people behind this, they're not just criminals, Amelia. They're connected. Politicians, federal agents, judges. If we go after them directly, we'll both end up dead. It was a masterful performance, taking the truth and twisting it just enough to make himself the hero instead of the villain. Amelia wanted to throw her scotch in his face. Instead, she said, Then what do? We disappear, both of us. David set down his glass, took both her hands again. I've been preparing for this. I have money set aside, accounts they can't trace, documentation for new identities. We leave tonight. Start over somewhere safe. Let the company collapse. Let the investigation happen, but we're somewhere they can't touch us. Leave? Just abandon everything? There's nothing left to abandon, Amelia. The company's dying. The board's turned against you. Every attempt to fight back has failed. The only thing left to save is ourselves. He leaned forward, his voice intense. I love you. I'm not going to let them kill you like they killed your father. So we run. Together. And we build a new life somewhere they'll never find us. In her ear, Ryan's voice was tight with controlled anger. Keep him talking. We need him to admit his involvement. Amelia pulled her hands away from David's, stood up, walked to the windows. The city stretched out below, thousands of lives being lived by people who had no idea what was happening in this apartment. How much money? She asked quietly. What? You said you have money set aside. How much? Enough. 5 million in accessible accounts, another 10 million that'll take a few days to liquidate, $15 million. Amelia turned to face him. That's a lot of money for a CFO to have saved. David's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. I've been careful with investments, made some good calls. Really? Because I looked at your investment portfolio last month. You were worth maybe 2 million. So where did the other 13 million come from, David? Now his face did change, the warmth drained out of it, replaced by something colder, more calculating. What are you doing, Amelia? I'm asking questions. Isn't that what you taught me? Always verify the numbers? This isn't the time. When is the time? Before or after we run away to wherever you've got planned? Before or after I disappear with a man who somehow has $15 million in untraceable accounts? She took a step toward him. Tell me the truth, David. Where did the money come from? David stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice had lost all pretense of warmth. You need to be very careful right now. Or what? You'll kill me like you killed my father? The words hung in the air between them. David smiled. It was nothing like his earlier smiles. This one was sharp, predatory. So you do know. I wondered. The panicked phone call, the desperate need to see me, it felt a little too convenient, but I thought maybe I was being paranoid. He walked to the bar, poured himself more scotch. Who's listening? FBI? Some private investigator you hired? That mechanic who's been helping you? Amelia's blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Ryan Mercer, former financial investigator, disappeared 3 years ago after his wife was killed, now running a garage in Brooklyn and playing hero for a billionaire who's in way over her head. David drank his scotch in one swallow. Did you really think I wouldn't find out about him? I have resources too, Amelia. Better resources than you can imagine. In her ear, Ryan's voice. Get out. Now. But Amelia didn't move. You had my father killed. Your father was going to destroy a very profitable operation. He left me no choice. There's always a choice. Not when you're already committed. Not when you've taken money and made promises and burned bridges. David set down his glass with enough force to make it crack. Your father was a good man. Honorable. Stupid. He thought he could fight against people who've been doing this for decades. He thought right and wrong mattered more than power, and it got him killed. So you poisoned him. I didn't personally know, but I made the arrangements, called the right people, ensured it would look natural enough that no one would ask difficult questions. David's voice was almost conversational now, like he was describing a business deal. And then I consoled his grieving daughter, helped her take over the company, positioned myself to profit from its collapse. It was actually quite elegant. You're insane. I'm practical. There's a difference. David pulled out his phone. Now, I'm going to make a call. Some very unpleasant people are going to come here and take you somewhere quiet. And whatever recording device you're wearing is going to end up at the bottom of the Hudson River along with you. Unless... He didn't finish the sentence because Ryan's voice came through Amelia's earpiece loud and clear. Gun, behind the bar. Amelia's eyes flicked to the bar. There, barely visible in the shadow beneath the counter, she saw the outline of something that could have been a weapon. David noticed her looking. His smile widened. Ah, so your friend is watching too. Cameras? Or did he manage to get someone inside the building? Neither, Ryan's voice said, but not through the earpiece this time. Through the apartment's actual speakers, the expensive sound system David had installed throughout the space. David spun toward the ceiling, confused. I'm in your network, Ryan continued, his voice coming from everywhere at once. Have been since you connected to that bank account this morning. Every camera, every microphone, every smart device in this apartment. I've been watching you for 3 hours. David's face went white. And I've been recording everything, Ryan said. Every word of this conversation is being uploaded to 7 different servers as we speak. Encrypted backups sent to the FBI, the SEC, the New York Times, and a few other interested parties. By the time you make that phone call to your unpleasant friends, everyone's going to know exactly what you did. You're bluffing. Check your phone. David looked down at his phone. His expression crumbled as he read whatever was on the screen. How did you? I told you, I'm in your network, which means I'm also in your bank accounts. That $15 million you were planning to run away with? It's currently being transferred to a recovery fund for Vaughn Global employees who are going to lose their jobs because of you. All of it, every dollar. You can't. Already done. Should finish processing in about 2 minutes. David threw his phone across the room hard enough that it shattered against the wall. Then he lunged for the gun under the bar. He was fast. Faster than Amelia expected. But she was closer. Amelia grabbed a heavy crystal decanter from the bar and swung it with everything she had. It connected with David's head with a sound like a watermelon hitting pavement. He went down hard, blood streaming from a gash above his ear, the gun skittering away across the polished floor. Amelia stood over him, breathing hard, the decanter still in her hand. David groaned, tried to push himself up. She hit him again, not as hard this time, but hard enough to keep him down. "That's for my father," she said. The apartment door burst open and Tommy came through with 3 other men, all of them armed and moving with tactical precision. They secured David, securing the gun, pulling him to his feet even though he was barely conscious. Ryan came through the door last, pulling out Amelia's earpiece and checking her face. "You okay?" "I hit him with a decanter." "I saw. Good swing. I've never hit anyone before." "You're a natural." Ryan looked at Tommy. "Police?" 2 minutes out. I called them the second he started confessing." Tommy looked at David with disgust. "This is the guy? This is the mastermind who killed Marcus Vaughn?" David's eyes focused enough to glare at Tommy. "You don't know who you're dealing with. The people I work for. They'll destroy all of you." "The people you work for are already scrambling," Ryan said. "Turns out when you upload evidence of an international weapons smuggling operation to multiple federal agencies simultaneously, it tends to create chaos. Your partners are probably burning documents and booking flights right now. It won't matter. There are too many of us, too much money, too much power. You can't stop it." "Maybe not all of it," Ryan agreed, "but we can stop you. And everyone else who thought they could use Vaughn Global to fund terrorism and murder. We can expose enough of the network that it collapses under its own weight. And we can make sure Marcus Vaughn's daughter gets to rebuild what you tried to destroy." Sirens were audible now, getting closer. David laughed, but it came out wet and broken because his mouth was bleeding. "You think you've won? You think this is over? They'll come for you. They'll come for her. They'll come for everyone you care about until there's nothing left." "Let them come," Ryan said quietly. "I spent 3 years running. I'm done running." The police arrived in force. Multiple cars, detectives, uniforms creating a perimeter. Tommy handed David over to them, along with the gun and a flash drive containing everything they'd recorded. The lead detective took statements from everyone, his expression growing more incredulous with each detail. "This is going to be the biggest case of the decade," he said finally. "Maybe the century. You understand that, right? What you've uncovered here. It's going to reach into boardrooms, federal offices, probably foreign governments. There's going to be pressure to bury this. Enormous pressure." "Then don't let them," Amelia said. "My father died trying to expose this. I'm not letting his death be for nothing." The detective looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "We'll do everything we can." After the police left with David in custody, after the paramedics had checked everyone for injuries, after the detectives had finished their preliminary investigation, Ryan and Amelia found themselves standing alone in David's apartment, surrounded by evidence tags and police tape. "Is it really over?" Amelia asked. "This part is. David's going to prison, probably for life. The evidence we gathered will bring down at least a dozen other people in the network. Vaughn Global will survive, though it'll take years to rebuild trust. And the people at the top, the ones David said would come after us." Ryan was quiet. "Some of them will go to prison. Some will disappear. Some will fight back. It's never really over, Amelia. But you've done what your father couldn't. You've exposed them enough that they can't operate in darkness anymore. That's a kind of victory." Amelia walked to the windows, looked out at the city. "I don't feel victorious. I feel exhausted. That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline for days. Now that it's stopping, the crash is hitting. What happens now? To us? You go back to running your company. You rebuild it the right way. You make your father proud. And you?" Ryan looked at her. "I go back to my garage. Back to Emma. Back to being nobody." "You're not nobody, Ryan. You saved my life. You brought down criminals who've been operating for decades. I'm a single father who needs to make sure his daughter has a normal life," Ryan interrupted gently. "This was a detour. An important one, but still a detour. My real life is in Brooklyn fixing motorcycles and helping Emma with homework." Amelia turned to face him fully. "What if I don't want you to go back?" "What? What if I asked you to stay? To help me rebuild the company? To work for me officially instead of hiding in a garage?" Ryan shook his head. "That's not who I am anymore. Maybe it could be. Maybe you don't have to choose between keeping Emma safe and using your skills to do good in the world. Maybe you could have both. It doesn't work that way." "Why not?" "Because people like me attract danger, and danger around Emma is the one thing I can't accept."
Even if the danger's already found you? Even if hiding didn't actually keep her safer? Amelia took a step toward him. You said yourself you're done running, so maybe it's time to stop hiding too. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to explain all the reasons why she was wrong, why staying invisible was the only way to protect Emma, why getting involved in Amelia's world would end badly for everyone. But looking at her now, standing in her ex-fiance's apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of a battle she'd won, fierce and determined and refusing to back down, he couldn't find the words. I need to think about it, he said finally. Okay, think about it. Amelia smiled, and for the first time in days, it reached her eyes. But while you're thinking, remember that Emma asked you to help people, and that maybe the best way to teach her about doing the right thing is to actually do it instead of hiding from it. Before Ryan could respond, his phone rang. It was Tommy. Turn on the news, Tommy said without preamble. Ryan pulled out his phone, found a news stream. The headline hit him immediately. Breaking. Massive weapons smuggling ring exposed. Luxury shipping company at center of international scandal. The news anchor was talking rapidly, images flashing across the screen. Vaughn Global Headquarters, David Chen being led away in handcuffs. Federal agents carrying boxes of evidence out of office buildings. It's everywhere, Tommy said. Every network, every website. Someone leaked everything to the media before the feds could contain it. Ryan looked at Amelia. She was watching the same broadcast on her phone, her expression unreadable. You did this? Ryan said to her. You leaked it. I sent copies to 15 different news organizations 2 hours ago, before we went to David's apartment. I wasn't going to let them bury this, and I didn't trust the FBI to actually follow through. Amelia met his eyes. My father taught me that sometimes you have to force people to do the right thing, even people who are supposed to be on your side. Ryan started to laugh. He couldn't help it. What's funny? Amelia asked. You are. You just destroyed your ex-fiance's life, exposed an international criminal conspiracy, and potentially started a political firestorm that's going to reach into multiple governments. And you did it before lunch on a Tuesday. Is that bad? It's probably the most reckless thing you could have done. It's going to make you enemies, powerful enemies. People who thought they were untouchable are going to want you dead. So I'll need security. Good security. Amelia tilted her head. Know anyone who might be qualified? Ryan looked at her. This woman who'd stumbled into his garage bleeding and terrified less than a week ago, who'd survived assassination attempts and Russian mobsters, and a fiancé who'd tried to murder her, who'd just taken on an international criminal conspiracy with nothing but evidence and stubbornness. She was going to get herself killed, unless someone kept her alive. I might know someone, Ryan said, but he comes with conditions. His daughter's safety is non-negotiable. His past stays buried. And if you ever lie to him about anything important, he walks. Deal. I haven't said yes yet. Yes, you have. You just don't know it. Amelia walked over to him, stood close enough that he had to look down to meet her eyes. Thank you, Ryan, for everything, for not giving up on me, for believing I was worth saving. You didn't need saving. You needed backup. There's a difference. Then thank you for being my backup. She kissed him. It wasn't dramatic or passionate or any of the things movies made first kisses out to be. It was soft and brief and tasted like coffee and determination. And when she pulled away, Ryan realized he'd stopped breathing. That was, he started. A thank you, Amelia said. Nothing more, unless you want it to be something more. I don't know what I want. Then figure it out. But do it while helping me rebuild Vaughn Global into something my father would actually be proud of. Do it while teaching Emma that fighting for what's right matters. Do it while being the person you were always supposed to be instead of the person you've been hiding as. Ryan's phone rang again. This time, it was a number he didn't recognize. He answered it. Yeah? Mr. Mercer? A woman's voice, professional, clipped. This is Special Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We need to speak with you regarding evidence you've submitted in the Vaughn Global case. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you come to our offices this afternoon? Ryan looked at Amelia. She was watching him, waiting. Yeah, he said into the phone. I'll be there. After he hung up, Amelia raised an eyebrow. The FBI wants to talk to you? Apparently I've submitted evidence in a major case. They have questions. Are you worried? Should I be? Probably,
But you're going anyway. Yeah, I am. Ryan started toward the door, then paused. You coming? Where? FBI offices. They're going to want to talk to you too. You're the CEO of the company at the center of all this. Amelia grabbed her coat. Then I guess we're doing this together. Looks like it. They walked out of David's apartment side by side, leaving behind the wreckage and the blood and the evidence of everything that had happened. The elevator ride down was quiet, both of them processing the weight of what came next. On the street, the city continued its relentless motion. People rushing past, taxis honking, construction somewhere making the sidewalk vibrate. Normal life. Oblivious to the fact that somewhere above them a billion-dollar empire had just been exposed as a front for international criminals. Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Emma wants to know if you're coming to her school play Friday. She's a tree. Ryan smiled despite everything. Emma's in a school play Friday. What's she playing? A tree. That's perfect. Trees are strong, rooted. They survive storms. Amelia looked at him. You should go, after we talk to the FBI. I was planning to. Good, because I'd like to come too, if that's okay. Ryan stopped walking. You want to watch my 6-year-old daughter play a tree in a second-grade production?
I want to be part of your life, Ryan. Both of your lives. If you'll let me. Amelia's voice was steady, but her eyes showed vulnerability. I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. But somewhere between you saving my life and me hitting my ex-fiancé with a decanter, I realized something. I don't want to do this alone anymore. Any of it. The company, the rebuilding, the fighting. I want someone who has my back. Someone I can trust. Someone who... Ryan kissed her this time. It was still soft, still brief, but it carried more weight, more promise, more possibility. When he pulled away, Amelia was smiling. So that's a yes to the school play? She asked. That's a yes to a lot of things, but we're taking it slow, for Emma's sake. Slow is good. I can do slow. And you need to understand, if this gets dangerous again, if people come after us, I will prioritize Emma over everything. Over you, over the company, over catching criminals. She comes first. Always. I wouldn't expect anything else, Amelia said. That's part of why I... She stopped herself. That's part of why I trust you. They stood on the sidewalk for another moment, the city moving around them, the future uncertain, but no longer quite so terrifying. Then Ryan's phone rang again, FBI. This time a different agent. They're persistent, he said. They're feds. It's what they do. Amelia linked her arm through his. Come on. Let's go give them everything they need to take down an international criminal conspiracy. Then we'll get coffee. Then we'll figure out what comes next. In that order? In exactly that order. They walked toward the subway. Two people who'd met less than a week ago in a garage in Brooklyn, who'd survived assassination attempts and Russian mobsters, and a fiancé turned criminal, who were now walking into an FBI office to testify about crimes that reached into governments and boardrooms across the globe. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was exactly what Ryan had spent 3 years trying to avoid. But looking at Amelia beside him, determined, fierce, refusing to back down even when the smart thing would be to run, Ryan realized he didn't want to avoid it anymore. Maybe Emma had been right all along. Maybe helping people was worth the risk. Maybe doing the right thing mattered more than staying safe. And maybe, just maybe, he could be both things at once. The father who kept his daughter safe and the man who fought for what was right. It wouldn't be easy. It probably wouldn't even be smart. But it would be real. And after 3 years of hiding, real was exactly what Ryan needed. 8 months later, Ryan stood in the back of a middle school auditorium, watching Emma take her final bow as the Statue of Liberty in a production about American history that had somehow involved more glitter than historical accuracy. Amelia sat beside him, applauding louder than anyone else in the room, and when Emma spotted them both in the crowd, her face lit up in a way that made every dangerous moment of the past year worth it. The trials had taken 4 months. David Chen was serving 25 years in a federal prison upstate. Martin Cross had testified against 11 other conspirators in exchange for a reduced sentence, and his testimony had brought down a network that spanned 3 continents. The weapons smuggling operation was dismantled. Vaughn Global had been restructured from the ground up,
with new leadership, new protocols, and a commitment to transparency that made investors nervous but employees hopeful. Amelia had testified in 6 different trials, spent countless hours with federal investigators, and somehow still managed to rebuild the company her father had started. She'd moved out of the penthouse in Tribeca and into a brownstone 3 blocks from Ryan's garage. Not with him, they were still taking things slow, but close enough that Emma could walk over after school most days. Ryan had officially become Vaughn Global's head of security, though he still kept the garage running because working with his hands kept him grounded. Tommy had helped set up a legitimate security consulting firm that employed several of the men who'd helped storm the warehouse that night. They specialized in corporate security for companies trying to clean up their operations. It wasn't a perfect life. There were still threats, anonymous emails, suspicious cars on the street, moments when Ryan's hand automatically moved toward a weapon that wasn't there. But those moments came less frequently now. The network they'd exposed was in pieces, and what remained was too busy surviving to come after them. After the play, they took Emma for ice cream at the place she loved in Park Slope. She chattered nonstop about the performance, about how she'd remembered all her lines, about how her friend Jessica had forgotten hers, and Emma had whispered them loud enough for the whole audience to hear. "You were amazing," Amelia told her, and Emma beamed. "Did you see when I held the torch up? I didn't drop it this time." "I saw. Very steady, very patriotic." Emma giggled, then got quiet in that way she did when she was working up to asking something important. Ryan recognized the look. "What is it, baby?" he asked. "Are you and Amelia going to get married?" Ryan nearly choked on his coffee. Amelia's spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. "That's a big question," Ryan said carefully. "Sophie's mom got married last month. She said it means 2 people love each other and want to be together forever." Emma looked between them seriously. "Do you love each other?" Ryan and Amelia exchanged glances. They'd been careful not to have this conversation in front of Emma, not to rush into definitions or promises they weren't sure they could keep. But Emma had always been too smart for her own good. "Yes," Amelia said quietly. "I love your dad. Very much." "And I love Amelia," Ryan added, hearing the truth of it, even as the words felt strange to say out loud for the first time. Emma nodded like this confirmed something she'd already figured out. "Then you should get married. That's what people do when they love each other." "It's not quite that simple, Em." "Why not?" Ryan struggled for an answer that would make sense to a 7-year-old. "Because getting married is a big decision. It means promising to be there for each other no matter what, and we want to be sure we're ready for that." "Mommy would want you to be happy," Emma said, with the devastating clarity that only children possess. "She told me before she died that you deserve to smile again. I think Amelia makes you smile." Ryan felt his throat tighten. Beside him, Amelia's hand found his under the table, squeezed gently. "Your mom was a very smart woman," Ryan managed. "So is Amelia," Emma said. "I think they would have been friends." "I think so too, sweetheart." Emma went back to her ice cream, satisfied with the conversation. Ryan and Amelia sat in silence for a moment, hands still linked, both of them processing what had just happened. Later, after Emma was asleep and Ryan was walking Amelia back to her brownstone through Brooklyn streets that felt safer than they had in years, she asked the question he'd been expecting. "Do you think we will, eventually? Get married?" "Yeah." Ryan thought about it. About everything that had happened, everything they'd survived together, everything they'd built. About Emma's face when she saw them both at her play. About the way Amelia had seamlessly become part of their lives without demanding anything change. "I think maybe," he said, "when we're both ready, when it feels right instead of rushed." "I can live with maybe." Amelia leaned against him as they walked. "I spent so long thinking I needed to have everything figured out. The perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect life. And then it all fell apart and I realized maybe perfect was never the point." "What is the point?" "Real, honest. People who show up when things get hard instead of running away." She looked up at him. "You could have run, multiple times. You could have stayed hidden in your garage and let me figure it out on my own. But you didn't. Emma wouldn't have forgiven me if I had. It wasn't just Emma. You needed this too, to stop hiding, to remember that you're more than what happened to you." Ryan was quiet for a block. Then he said, "My wife used to tell me I had a hero complex, that I thought I could fix everything wrong with the world if I just worked hard enough. And she was right.
I did think that. Up until the moment it got her killed. That wasn't your fault.
Intellectually, I know that. But knowing something and believing it are different things. Ryan stopped walking, turned to face her. For 3 years, I believed the only way to keep Emma safe was to disappear, to be nobody. And then you showed up bleeding in my garage and everything I'd built started falling apart. I was so angry at you for that. I know. But you were right. Hiding wasn't protecting her. It was just teaching her to be afraid. And when she asked me to help you, when she reminded me that doing the right thing matters, I realized I'd been lying to myself. I wasn't keeping her safe. I was keeping myself safe from having to risk anything ever again. Amelia reached up, touched his face gently. And now? Now I'm terrified every single day that something's going to happen to her, to you, to this fragile thing we've built, but I'm also living again instead of just surviving. And that matters. It has to matter, or Sarah died for nothing. They stood on the quiet Brooklyn street, the city breathing around them. And for the first time in years, Ryan felt something close to peace.
I'm not Sarah, Amelia said softly. I can't replace her. I don't want to, but I can be here. I can love you and Emma and this strange life we're building. If you'll let me. I'm letting you, Ryan said. I've been letting you for months now. I just didn't know how to say it. You don't have to say it. You show it every day. Every time you check the security cameras at my office. Every time you make sure Emma includes me in her school projects. Every time you let yourself be vulnerable instead of shutting down. She smiled. You're not as good at hiding as you think you are. Apparently not.
They walked the last block in comfortable silence. At her door, Amelia kissed him goodnight, the kind of kiss that had become familiar over the past months, soft and certain and full of promise. See you tomorrow? She asked. Emma has soccer practice at 4. You coming? I wouldn't miss it. Someone has to explain the offside rule to you. I know the offside rule. You definitely don't. Ryan laughed and it felt good. Easy. Like something he didn't have to work so hard for anymore. He walked back to his apartment thinking about everything that had changed and everything that hadn't. The garage was still there, still fixing motorcycles for people who paid in cash and never asked questions. Emma still did her homework at the kitchen table while Ryan cooked dinner. The neighborhood still looked tired and worn around the edges. But inside the tiny apartment above the garage, there were new photographs on the walls. Emma and Amelia at Coney Island. Ryan and Amelia at a Vaughn Global Charity Gala, where he'd worn a suit that actually fit and managed not to look completely miserable. The 3 of them at the Central Park Zoo. Emma between them, holding both their hands. A family. Not the one Ryan had planned. Not the one he'd lost. But a real one anyway. Built from broken pieces and second chances and a 7-year-old girl who'd known before any of them what they needed. The world was still dangerous. There were still people who wanted to hurt the vulnerable and profit from suffering. There were still battles to fight and wrongs to expose and criminals who thought they were untouchable. But Ryan wasn't fighting alone anymore. And maybe that was the lesson Emma had been trying to teach him all along. That strength wasn't about being invulnerable. It was about being willing to be vulnerable with people who'd earned that trust. That protection wasn't about hiding from every threat. It was about facing threats alongside people who had your back. That love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone real and choosing them anyway, flaws and fears and all. Ryan checked on Emma before going to bed. She was asleep with her stuffed elephant, her homework spread across her desk, her Statue of Liberty costume hanging on the back of her door. She looked peaceful, safe, happy. Everything he'd fought for, everything he'd keep fighting for. But not by hiding anymore, by standing up, by being present, by teaching her through example that doing the right thing mattered, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. Tomorrow he'd wake up and fix motorcycles and help Emma with her homework and check security protocols at Vaughn Global and maybe have dinner with Amelia if she wasn't working late. Normal things. Small things. The kind of life that looked unremarkable from the outside but felt like everything from the inside. And somewhere in the city, other people were building their own versions of this, finding their own second chances, learning their own lessons about what mattered and what didn't. Because that's what people did. They survived. They adapted. They found ways to keep going even when everything fell apart. And sometimes, if they were very lucky, they found someone to keep going with. Ryan turned off the light, and let himself imagine the future. Emma graduating high school. Amelia rebuilding Vaughn Global into something that actually made the world better. Maybe another wedding. Maybe more children. Maybe just more quiet evenings in Brooklyn with people he loved. Whatever came next, he'd face it. Not alone, not hiding, but standing in the light with his daughter and the woman who'd stumbled into his garage and changed everything. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was real and honest and worth every risk he'd taken to get here. And that, Ryan thought as he finally fell asleep, was more than enough.